questions ready. But for the sake of you guys, I don't know if you guys know each other, so would you mind, Andrew, would you just introduce yourself and tell us where you're from?
Yep, Andrew Shriver, originally Cleveland, Ohio, and currently in Minnesota, and mostly hockey stuff.
All right, awesome. And Heather?
I'm Heather Dittmer. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee right now, and mostly soccer stuff in the past.
All right, awesome. I kept thinking you were volleyball because for your audition, you were doing heading the ball, and for some reason I was thinking that was volleyball. And I looked up, that was heading the ball in soccer.
Yeah.
But actually, aren't they still having debates? Are they having debates down in Nashville whether that's going to be allowed in high school still? That's the buzz I've been hearing around here, that there's debates going to stop heading.
Probably. In college, I was a intramural referee, and it was legal then, so.
I've just heard that lately, like at the youth levels around here, they're trying to decide what age they're going to ban heading the ball, which probably smart.
Yeah.
Carolyn, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, my little belt broke. Carolyn. Carolyn Quindicka. Sorry, Hawaii. What was the question?
That was it. Just hello. Who are you? Where are you from?
Hi.
All right. Well, tonight we're going to jump into the ELM Tree Mastery, and for years, since 1998, this has been the very first principle in our workshops. This has been sort of the core, the grand slam, the most exciting principle to get started with. And just recently, we've decided to switch the order because what we're finding is the power of positive is something that sticks. And when you prioritize the principles and you say which one's more important than another, they all intertwine, they're all important, but the one message that we want coaches to walk away with is increasing positivity in practices. And we think overall that will change behavior the fastest, not think, but we have research to back it up. So we flipped the principles, and now the ELM Tree of Mastery is second. So the only reason that that's confusing for you moving forward is that I'm going to explain to the people in the audience that the order of the book is actually different than the order in the workshop. So usually it went sequentially where, chapter 2 was ELM Tree of Mastery, chapter 4 was Emotional Tank, just so that when you go out to do a workshop, you understand that now we're switching it, so the second principle actually comes first in the book. But I think, that being said, the couple times that I've done this workshop, I think it actually kind of defends our point a little bit more about the power of positive, the fact that, we're always trying to get better. And this is something that we've decided is so important, and the research is backing us up, the current research is backing us up, the media is backing us up, so much so that we've switched the order of the principle so that the emotional tank filling is first. So before I jump into that, do you guys have any questions for me about things going on in the course or anything coming up or anything you saw? Wide open for questions. Questions from poolside. Actually, I love that all of you guys are outside right now. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kelly, something that just jumped out at me that I'm sure you'll touch on was I blanched just a tiny bit at the notion of redefining winning, only because I'm just picturing the Yabbit coach in the back with his the football coach with his arms folded saying, you don't redefine winning. Winning is getting more points. You can talk about whether or not it's important, but you don't try to fill my brain up with something along the lines of you still won even though your team didn't get enough points. So I've got my radar on that coach right now. So that's just food for thought as we work through it. And I guess for me it was just as easy to move on by saying if you redefine success, then all of this you don't even have to conversation as we work tonight.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. It is redefining the term winning, but I think you're right. It's in terms of success. How do you define success? And when we talk about the scoreboard definition of success versus the mastery definition of success, that's where it sort of clicks with people. And in the very beginning of the workshop, in the intro, you've made it very clear that we're not anti-competition, that we are very much trying to help these coaches win more games. So I think a lot of that, when you get to this principle, and even in the past, when this has been the first principle right off the bat, that's a good point, because now that emotional tank is, that used to get, that our argument was finished after the first principle, because you understood what mastery actually meant. Right. And mastery has probably the most research written about it than any of the principles. So this idea of redefining what it means to win and what it means to be successful, and in turn, that will get you better performance on the scoreboard, better performance out of your athletes, which will lead to more wins. So that sort of nipped that in the bud. I think with the onus getting on emotional tank filling and positivity and leading with positivity, 5-to-1 ratio, doing all of that first, it's going to be even more important that right off the bat in the intro that you definitely understand the role of winning is very, very important to us.
Gotcha.
So, all right, Carolyn or Heather, do you guys have any questions before I jump in?
No.
Okay, cool. Well, so what I'm going to do, and this is where I've debated over the years too over whether I should just do it like I do it in a workshop or stop. The cool thing about this is the more that I do these workshops and the more that I see trainers all over the place, the more ideas I get. So I have a list here of like things I do myself, things I'm going to tell you, but then I have like a list of 10 different ideas on different ways people have different ideas or stories or exercises they've used to illustrate this principle. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through it smoothly from beginning to end as if you were my audience in a workshop. And then at the end, I'll go back and I'll give you some suggestions of how different trainers have done things. Even as soon as this weekend, I was down in Washington, D.C. We did a local trainer day down there, and I saw a few things that were done, and I thought, oh, I'm going to use that now. So one of the things we always say is we are in, all the PCA trainers have permission to steal, and I actually asked Andrew if I could steal one of his things today. But you don't necessarily need permission to steal because we are trying to all get better at the same time. So if you hear a story or an exercise, we're all very comfortable with saying, yeah, do it. And I like to give credit where credit is due, so I'll say, oh, I saw a trainer in Washington, D.C., and this is the story she told. I like to give credit, but you don't even have to do that. If you see something I do and you like it, take it. It's fine with me. So I'm going to jump in. I'm going to have to do a screen share for the videos. Have you both gone through, or three of you? I know, Carolyn, you've seen it. Have you gone through the PowerPoint so far and had a chance to go over it and go over the notes? You're familiar with it. Okay. The one thing also that I wanted to apologize for, sort of, is that the notes in the PowerPoint aren't up to date yet, and I'm sure some of you have noticed that, the trainer notes. That's why when I go through this on the PowerPoint, I wanted to make sure that, you know, if you want to take notes or something, you will. And the reason for that is simply that this workshop's not even done yet. So there have been a lot of questions about, you know, you're teaching this to 38 new associate trainers that are coming on board and it's not even finished yet. So yes, I am. But the notes are going to be put up to date. I asked Ruben for the most recent, so I might be sending that out next week so that you guys have the clear trainer notes. But most of the notes are things that I say as I'm going over this. So if you have questions, we'll get you the notes ASAP. But even as soon as last week, we might even be changing the order of some of these slides. So this is going to be like cutting edge, hot off the press. All right, so I'm going to jump right in. You're going to be my group of coaches. We've just done the emotional tank principle, and then this slide comes back up again. This slide is right after they've done the tools for the emotional tank, and they've done the buddy system, positive charting, winner's circle. We've kind of done that exercise, so everybody was just up and out of their seats. The energy level was high, so now we can bring them back to their seats. And okay, now we're going to transition to the second principle. The second principle has to do with improvement. All of us as coaches, we want our athletes to improve. That's the bottom line. We want them to be better than they were the day before, better than they were last season. So we're going to talk about this idea of mastery. And what we're going to talk about is effort versus outcome. And I'm going to use that. Carol Dweck is one of our National Advisory Board members, and she's a huge contributing member to a lot of the studies that we talk about. I actually had the opportunity to see her a few times. She was just out in California for our all-staff conference, and her research is mind-blowing, literally. And the things that she says in her research are really neat because she changes them. I've seen her 4 times now, and every time she updates it to go a little bit further with the research that she does. So I'd like you to hear from her. Psychology professor at Stanford currently. She's also worked at Harvard and Columbia, and she's just amazing in her studies. So I'm going to let you listen to this first, and I want to hear when we're finished what stands out at you. Something different might stand out for each of you. So let me play this video for you.
We did a study of college athletes looking at whether they believed their coaches valued effort and practice or natural talent and outcomes. The more they believed their coaches valued effort and practice, the better they did that year and the more they improved. It is crucial for coaches to send that message. I value practice. I value effort. I value setting your goals in terms of practice and effort. Many coaches may think it's obvious. Effort and practice lead to greater skills and a winning record. But if they don't communicate that value to players, those players may be working in a completely different framework.
All right. So just from that quick clip, she said a lot of heavy things there. What stood out to you?
That's the elm tree. Exactly. It's almost like she was reading the book.
All right. It's almost like she wrote the book. It's almost like we borrowed her information to write the book. Yeah, absolutely. What else did she say? You as a coach, what did you hear?
She attached actual success and performance, which is some of the more obvious things that we value and we can see without even trying that hard. She attached actually improvement there to this more subtle cause of athletes that believe their coach values effort.
Yeah, and the key word I just heard you say, Andrew, is believe. He didn't necessarily say that the coaches have to write down improvement. The coaches have to be aware of the improvement. The coaches have to make sure that players are improving. It's that word of belief. And what I think is so fascinating about her studies are that when she actually kind of conditioned the coaches to coach a certain way, just based on outcomes, just based on goals about what's their shooting percentage, how fast are they, how strong are they, how many shots have they had, those type of stats did not help kids perform as much as the caring climate where the coaches actually believed the players could improve, showed them support, and really stressed the effort that the athletes put in and set goals based on effort and showed value in practice. So the cool thing for me being a young coach is that I don't know necessarily what my 12-year-olds should be doing at this point in terms of shooting percentages. I know that professionals do not have very high shooting percentages. And here I'm trying to get my 12-year-olds to make a goal every single time. But what I do know is that I can show them that success comes at the end of a process of hard work and practice and setting goals. So let's talk about this a little bit today in terms of the next principle. We know this belief is very important. How do you get athletes to believe they can get better? How do you instill that belief into an athlete? Is there anything that you've done on your teams that really instill the belief that shows your kids, I believe in you. I do know that you've got the ability to be able to do this. Any golden nuggets of inspiration you can give us as coaches? Has anyone ever instilled belief in you? You have a coach. Remember that coach we talked about in the very beginning, that coach that really was influential in your life in a positive way. How did that coach make you believe?
A lot of teams will play teams in their schedule twice, and so regardless of the outcome of that first game, that is actually a place where you can compare yourself to yourself that second time through the schedule, and it's a great way to trace improvement without hinging it on whether or not we actually beat the defending conference champs who are undefeated against everybody else as well. We can compare our last performance to our current performance or the one that's coming up next week.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great, comparing yourself to yourself. It's something that's simply said, and different sports you have to translate it different ways. Absolutely. What are some other ways that coaches can actually instill that idea to athletes that I believe in you? I believe you can get better.
I think by giving many opportunities. So even if a player messes up once, but by saying, hey, you can try this again, I believe in you, and allowing them to get back on the field, or not pulling them off right away, or staying with them after practice and saying, I know you can strike a perfect long ball, let's try it again. And then once they get it, I mean, it's like elation.
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping them in the game. Let them keep playing. Absolutely. There's three very simple ways that and these are obvious, but we're going to point them out to you today. What Carol Dweck's research and a lot of her comrades, a lot of her colleagues have said is very simply, tell them. Tell them you value effort. There's no secret formula. Tell them that it's important. You're valuing the effort. When a child puts out 100% effort, no matter what the goal is, praise them for it. I love the way you hustled to that ball. Thank you so much for getting here. I mean, how many times in practice do we call the kids in for a huddle? Okay, I high-five the first three. I don't high-five all of them. I just high-five the first three that get there to me first. And I said, nice hustle, nice hustle, nice hustle. And the kids are funny because they know I only give 3 high-fives to the first 3 that get there. And it's really silly. I have 8-year-olds, and they notice it right away. Now they sprint to the huddle. Every time I say, when the drill's over, I say, okay, everybody come in. They sprint because they want to get one of my 3 high fives. Become a noticer. So this kind of goes together. Tell them, notice. Become a noticer of effort. Notice it all around the field, everywhere they are, everything they're doing. Just what are they trying hard? Are they putting in the effort? And the last one is attributing success to the effort that they're putting in. So one of the things Carol Dweck talks a lot about, and it's in the book, I'm not going to go into too much detail now, but the 2 different mindsets that Carol Dweck talks about are the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And that has to do with where is success attributed to. Is it attributed to natural ability? Yeah, you're tall, you're fast, you're a good shooter, you're a fast swimmer. That's just talent. Or is it attributed to the hard work that the player puts in? You've become a good shooter because you've worked really hard at it. I saw you stay after practice and work on that left-handed shot. Or, gosh, you have been working on your flip turn for 2 weeks and I really saw a difference. So it's really in the mindset and the attitude of the coach that can allow the players to believe they can improve, which will then translate into improvement. So let's talk about this. Here's some different phrases we can use. Things like, that was a great play. You've really been working hard in practice, and it shows. Okay, something as simple as that. Just watch how you phrase things. It's going to be a big impact on your players. So this ELM Tree of Mastery principle has to do with differentiating between the scoreboard definition of success and the mastery definition of success and of winning. So let me break that up for you. Scoreboard definition, coaches and teams are focused only on results. Who wins at the end of the game? Who's faster? Those people are successful. If you win the game, you're a winner. If you lose the game, you're a loser. Comparing with others. I can't tell you how many times that my team has gone up against a difficult opponent, and as soon as we get there, the kids look at the other opponent and go, they're big, they're fast, oh my gosh. Or you walk in and you see them warming up and you're watching them going, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do that. And they're all of a sudden comparing themselves to the other team. The last one is mistakes are not okay. Folks, I'm on your team. I've just made a huge mistake. I'm going to count to 3, and I just want you to show me what a coach would look like, showing me the clear message that it was not okay that I made a mistake. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Show me. Oh, just like we talked about in tank draining. It only takes 1 second. I messed up. I looked at my coach. It's not okay. My hands are up. My head is down. That player knows they made a mistake. They don't need it reinforced from us. If a player is going to make a mistake in a game, if a player knows that it's not okay if he or she makes a mistake, he or she is not going to be ready to go out there and play their hardest. Why?
Because they're afraid to make another mistake.
You got it. Fear is the #1 impediment to peak performance. Don Wooden once said, the teams that make the most mistakes wins. How is that possible? Well, if they're not afraid to make mistakes, they're going to keep going out there and trying. What do you do with a mistake? You recognize it, you admit it, you learn from it, and you forget it, and you move on. So let's talk about the opposite here. The mastery definition of success and this culture that we're trying to create is non-controversial in sports psychology research. We're trying to get the players and the coaches to think like this. Instead of focusing on results, let's focus on effort. Let's focus on learning, and let's focus on mistakes being okay. So this is called the ELM, effort, learning, and how you handle mistakes, how you bounce back from mistakes. So I'm going to show you a quick video from Claude Julien, the head coach of the Boston Bruins, and he has something that he uses with his NHL players. He's also coached 2 Olympic teams, and I'm going to show you just a quick video on how he handles mistakes with his team. Come on, Claude. There we go.
We did a study.
Sorry, that's not who I wanted.
Valued effort.
There you go. Oh, where's the... Okay, here we go.
Mistakes are part of the game, and you will always have mistakes in games. I think as players, as coaches, we try and minimize those. But when they do happen in a game, the biggest thing to do is you don't have to necessarily correct them right away. There's a lot of times the player knows what he's done wrong. But if you are going to correct, it's important also to leave them with a positive message. And we tell a lot of our players, we use the term release and reload. In other words, you get back to the bench, you release the negative thoughts of your mistake, and you reload with positive thinking so that when you do go back on the ice, you're not dragging that thought of your last shift with you, but yet you're thinking about what you want to do moving forward and how well you want to play from there on in. So important to what I use the term release and reload in a game. It works for every level, whether it's the NHL or whether it's youth hockey. I think it's a great great thing to have in your arsenal as far as being able to adapt to those kind of situations.
All right. So release and reload is something that he uses with his NHL hockey players. Release the mistake and reload with what you've learned so that you're ready for the next play. We're going to talk about mistake rituals in a minute, but let's think about that as an athlete. If you're able to get your mind and your body ready for the next play, you're unstoppable. What the research has shown, and this is something, again, the mastery climate, anxiety will go down. Self-confidence will go up. Think about the athletes that you have that struggle. Think about the ones that are in a slump. Think about the ones that are really challenging to you, probably because they're anxious, they're nervous, they're afraid. If they're not afraid of you, who else are they afraid to make mistakes?
Your parents.
Parents. Yes, they're worried about their parents. So this has to also be taught to the parents. Maybe they're just worried for themselves. They've got an image. They've got a reputation to protect. So this climate is not easy to teach, but it's a culture that you can start them realizing. So in this mastery approach, we've got lower anxiety. We've got higher self-confidence. Why? Because it gives the players a feeling of control. Let's talk about this. All right, you've got a game. You're up against one of your rival opponents. And I'm going to ask you, Andrew, what is the percentage of chance that you're going to win this game? Let's say you're up against the Eagles, okay?
50-50.
You're a betting man. What's the percentage that you're going to win this game?
50-50. Could go either way.
Okay. Heather, what about one of your biggest rivals? What do you think is, let's say you were going up against a soccer team today, and you're coaching. What percentage chance do you think you have to win the game? Oh, I'm sorry, you're on mute. I couldn't hear you. But
60-40.
60-40. Okay, so Andrew's team is playing Heather's team. He thinks it's about 50-50. Heather thinks it's about 60-40. Okay? Not great odds. I'm gonna say 50-50. I don't want to go into a game thinking, yeah, guys, here's my pep talk. We got a 50% chance of winning today. Is that going to fire up my team? Probably not. What if I said, what percent chance do you have, Andrew, of playing your hardest in the game today?
100% chance.
100%. Absolutely. What percentage chance, Heather, do you have on if you make a bad play, getting yourself ready on defense for the next play? What percentage?
100%.
100%. Right. Brad Stevens is one of the youngest coaches that ever coached in college, and now he's coaching for the NBA. And he says he's looking for players that can do 100% of things right. 100% of the things, the kicker is that they have control over. So what are the things besides effort, besides handling mistakes, do they have control of? Do those things right? Think about it in practical terms. What are some effort things that your players can do in practice that they have 100% control over? I want you to turn to a partner right now, and I want you to say 3 things sport-specific that are just effort-based that you would like your players to focus on, getting them right. For example, hustling for ground balls in lacrosse. If every player could just run as fast as I don't even care if they pick it up. I just want them to run as fast as they can when there's a loose ground ball towards that ball. That's my lacrosse example. Turn to a partner and give them 3 for your sport. Okay, so you turn to a partner. All right, just give me one. Andrew, give me one for your sport.
Defenseman covering tight in front of the net.
Good. Can everybody do that?
Absolutely.
Yes. 100%. Are they in control of how hard they work at that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Carolyn, give me one for your sport.
Hustling to the ball as fast as you can for soccer.
All right, hustling to the ball as fast as you can. Can every player do it?
Yes.
Yes, they can. Heather, give me another one.
Get back behind the ball on defense.
Get back behind the ball on defense. Can every player do that?
Yes.
Yes. It's your praise is contingent upon their effort. Now, if the player, for example, let's give a basketball example. Okay, I wanted my players to get the rebounds. So, as a young coach, I said, guys, we're getting killed on the boards. The scoreboard's not in our favor. Next quarter, I want you to go out, and we're going to really focus on getting every single rebound. Can we do that? So I thought I was doing a good thing because I was encouraging. I was saying, don't worry about the score because we're probably not going to win in my head. But we're just going to focus on getting rebounds. That's going to be our focus. Guess what? First 2 times down the court, we got crushed. They got us on every single rebound. And my players were looking like they were failures. Instead of saying, I want you to get the rebound every single time, that's our goal, what's the effort that you need to get a rebound in basketball? What do you have to do to get a rebound?
Box out.
Box out. You have to be in position. So if I would have said to my players instead, remember we practiced boxing out of practice yesterday. Remember the stance. Stay low, arms out. Watch where you are under the basket. If I would have focused on that and had every single player keeping them accountable for boxing out and getting in position as soon as your shot went up, they would probably have gotten more rebounds. Instead, they were looking at me like I already failed because coach wanted me to get a rebound and I missed it. So when we talk about what Carol Dweck talked about, effort in terms of practice and goals, make sure the goals that you're setting for your athletes are ones that they are in control of the effort, and the performance will increase. So mastery gives players a feeling of control. They're going to work harder. They're going to stick to it longer. Let's put this into practice now. Here's the scenario. Your team tends to play tentatively and lets the opponent drive the action. Now, your team could be on any place on this spectrum. Maybe you have one of the best teams in the league, but in your mind, they're still not being aggressive enough. Maybe you have the bad news bears that are sitting there more worried about, airplanes flying over and picking flowers at a game. They're not being aggressive at all. Sometimes it depends on the opponent. But let's think about this. What can you do to help your team be more aggressive? Get in there every time. Get more excited. Show more effort. What I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to find somebody in the room that plays a different sport, that coaches a different sport than you coach. I'd like you to match up in groups of at least 2. And I want you to just talk about, in your specific sport, how can you encourage these players to play a little bit more aggressively? What do you do? All right, so you all match up. We give you about 2 or 3 minutes to talk about it. I like to do it in different sports because different sports can lead to different skills. Can I have one of you volunteer to just share with me a way that you do in practice that you find really ups the energy level and ups the effort level of your players? All right, poolside Carolyn, give me an example.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, you want the team that's playing tentatively, you want to get them more excited and do what they are capable of doing.
Absolutely. How would you handle this, Coach?
So I would say probably think about the process. Mm-hmm. So, if you're playing volleyball, the first ball that comes over is a pass, so we get a good pass, and then the setter gets in position and then, gives a call. So I think making a plan of action will allow them to be more successful in the small term, like step by step by step by step. And I think that would build their confidence and make them re-believe in themselves.
Okay. So do you keep them accountable for each of those steps along the way?
It's a team effort, but I think, yeah, they are 100% accountable for getting to the ball. They know what to do, and I could just reiterate that.
Okay.
Feet underneath the ball, bend your knees.
Good. And those are the effort goals. Feet underneath the ball, bend your knees. Those are effort skills. Are the kids in control of that? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Great. Great example. Can I have a different example from a different sport?
I had a really tentative group of young girls, and they were nervous.
Can you hear me okay? I think I'm about to...
I can hear you. Heather started, though. We can hear you. Go ahead.
All right, I'll go. Anyways, the girls were real timid, and so before practice, we just did a shoulder-to-shoulder drill with a teammate, and then we all promised each other that we would all try and go shoulder-to-shoulder with the opponent in the next game. So they were used to what that would feel like, and if we were all doing it together, then we were all in it together, and so that was really helpful.
Good. I like that. That's a great idea. I like that for tank filling, too. It sounds like fun, something they would enjoy.
Yeah.
So let me give you a few tools that we can put into practice here. So, okay. Here's the idea, and you guys get this. Assertive aggressive play comes when there's no fear of mistakes. This is something that we already talked about. Focusing on effort is the key. How do we do this? I'm going to show you again. Chapter 4 in your book has some tools for you to use, and there's 9 of them. We're not going to go over all 9 of them, but the one that we did talk about earlier with release and reload is on page 23. We've got to eradicate the fear of mistakes. Page 23 mentions a few mistakes that we've borrowed from some coaches in the professional and college arena, and even youth coaches use it. The first one I like to explain is just the flush. It's simple. If everybody puts their arm up in the air right now, on the count of 3, you're going to make a really loud toilet flushing sound. 1, 2, 3. It's gone. The mistake is gone. Now, some of you might say, yeah, sorry, Kelly, I'm coaching like high school boys. The flush isn't going to work. There are toilets installed, little magnetic toilets installed in the Tampa Bay Lightning dugouts. And they use it. Professional athletes have put toilets in there. I've heard it. We borrowed it from Mike LaGarza of Kenyatta College out in California. These are not for little kids. These are things that it's a mental reset. It's a trigger, and they use it. No sweat. Brush it off. Shake it off. Julie Foudy, one of our other National Advisory Board members that had played on the Olympic team, girls usually have hair ties, ponytail holders around their wrist. She used to just snap it. Just snap out of it. Snap it out. Whatever you need to do. So an idea of a mistake ritual is actually physiologically, it's a physical sign that triggers a mental reset. And that physical sign is really important, especially in a sport like lacrosse or football or somewhere where the kids are on the other side of the field and they can't always hear you. They can watch you. They can see you say, flush it, flush it, flush it, brush it off, no sweat, shake it off, whatever it is. So that's really important too. Another one is become a noticer. What are some things that you can now do to encourage your players to work harder? Notice them. Mention it. Call it out. Praise it out in public. Whatever you need to do. I today was watching my daughter play lacrosse, and she was kind of bummed out because she had a couple shots and they weren't really falling. And so I saw her just walking back to the other side of the field, and my daughter next to me goes, "Let's go, Gracie, I love your hustle." And she picked up and started running. We were cracking up. I was like, wow, that was quick. And it was just a matter of her hearing, "We love that hustle." And she just ran. So it's very simple, and it works. It's pretty awesome. Turn to page 27 in your book that you have in front of you, because this is one that's very, very powerful. Maximize effort by rewarding unsuccessful effort. Now, this is where the scoreboard focus and the mastery focus really, really are illustrated well. We as coaches like successful outcomes. That's bottom line. We like it when the ball goes in. We like it when the race is won. However, the effort that went into making that play happen, regardless of the outcome, is going to make the kids work harder. So if you talk about rewarding, that's when I was asking Carolyn, do you keep the players accountable? Some people have said, well, if I just focus on effort, I need to be tougher. I need these kids to sprint and do suicides when they miss their shots. That's actually discouraging. That's going to make the kids not work harder. If we want them to work harder, we've got to keep them accountable for the effort. So, for example, one of the things I like to do, and I've brought this up before in lacrosse, is I like them to switch hands, especially at a young age. So I actually have a stat that I keep on how many times my players switch hands from their dominant side to their non-dominant side. And I recognize who has had the most switches in a drill, who's had the most switches in a game, who's had the most switches in 10 minutes. And I keep them accountable for that. I also tell the kids, hey, you know what? Grace, I didn't see you switch hands once. You were up against that defender. That defender was on your right-hand side. I didn't see you switch. So I'm not talking about being soft when we're talking about effort. It's actually harder because you've got to keep the kids accountable for their effort. If you've got teams that win and don't work very hard, if you're a scoreboard-focused coach, you're going to be okay with that. We won the game. We didn't have to work hard. How many of you have had teams that have gone into a game and you've lost on the scoreboard, but the kids have worked their tails off? Anybody ever have games like that? That's when you should be thrilled. The teams that they blow away the opponent and don't work hard, that's when you should not be thrilled. So just think about how you would react to that situation. I've seen coaches go, woohoo, we won. We didn't play well, but we won. Okay, that's showing winning scoreboard focus. All right, so this is the model. We've gone through emotional tank. We've done Elm Tree of Mastery. Now we're going to go on to the third principle, which really talks about the player's integrity, and that's called honoring the game. And that is principle number 3, and we're going to stop there. Okay, so I can move this out of the way. This is how I like these calls to go, so that we have 20 minutes at the end after I demonstrate this principle, so we can actually chat here. All right. It's funny because, and I'm going to be completely honest with you, this part of this workshop is different than it used to be, and Elm Tree of Mastery used to have a lot more in it. So as I was going through it, I'm like, oh, we're done it already, which is pretty funny. There used to be a lot more, and Carolyn knows this because she's seen it. There used to be a lot more in the Elm Tree of Mastery. Now we're trying to streamline things. But all right, before I get some ideas from you guys, what do you think? What did you like? What do you have questions about the way it was presented? What things would you think would connect to an audience? Some of the questions I know I asked you stopped, so because you didn't know how to answer it. So I'm thinking maybe it wasn't worded correctly. Help me out here. Give me some feedback.
I think that the elm tree is probably the most important to me because I think it crosses over so many other principles and it just solidifies what PCA is all about. But if you focus on the mastery skill and you have the kids understand that you have a process and a goal, I think that builds the confidence and everything along with it. And I think just that one thing as a coach, if you could do that, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I know a lot of kids that would benefit from that.
They would. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny because, you know, when you do these workshops, and a lot of times we used to say, so what do you think is the most important principle? And if you have, 30 people in a room, you're going to get 10 different answers because a lot of people think one is more important than another. So thanks, Carolyn, for sharing that. How about the rest of you? Any other thoughts, ideas? What'd you like?
I think that the places where the the research kicks in and confirms what we're trying to say about we don't need to sacrifice winning. I think those can't be magnified enough. Those can't be brought out enough, because I think that skepticism that I think we'll always face with this subject matter is always going to be, as soon as you start talking about these noble goals and trying and the warm fuzzy values, somehow that winning gets pushed aside. And I think that pointing out that there's a slide talking about mastery gives players that feeling of control.
Right.
And that every single good coach would talk about how the confident player is so much more effective than the scared player. And any coach would go on and on and on. The worst coach in the world can identify that. And so when we have that research that supports it and then takes it a step further and says, well, be intentional about it then, and be that voice that makes your players confident yourself, that's a great connection for us to make, I think, between winning, success, things you love, but the best way to do it, the most efficient way to be a high-performing team and a high-performing coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And Carol Dweck actually has another video that uses in her workshops. And and
Sorry, there's a helicopter.
That's okay. Coaches think that giving kids trophies and giving kids ribbons all the time is a way to instill confidence in them. This was one of her other videos, and she said, confidence is not given to kids through trophies and recognition and ribbons and all that stuff. Coaches are making a big mistake in doing that. Confidence is given when a player sees the results of their effort and their hard work, and they see success in little tiny wins along the way. That's what gives players confidence. And I like that video because I love to get into the debate about, and then you see all the people. The one time I was actually doing a workshop for Little League, it was the end of the season, and they had all their trophies. They had like 100 trophies in the back of the room in boxes ready to hand out at the next meeting. And that video came on, and I brought up the topic, like, should we give out trophies to every single player just because they showed up for practice every day? And they all started laughing and looked in the back of the room because there were boxes and boxes and boxes of these trophies there. And I laugh all the time. My kids are swimmers. My kids probably have 400 ribbons by the end of the summer for all the swim meets, and they go up to like 12th place. And I'm thinking, gosh, really? Every meet you get a ribbon for up to 12th place? That's just me. But the other thing that I do love, though, is my daughter's swim team. They get a fish if they improve their time, and they have like a wall, like a fish wall at the pool. And my daughter will work her butt off for a fish, little fish that has her name on it. And even if her time was 1/100th of a second faster than she swam it the last time, she gets this fish in the improvement fish bowl or whatever. So that is where I do point out, that is what we're talking about. That's effort. That's little wins along the way. It's not that she broke the record time. She just improved her own time, personal best. Heather, what do you think about the workshop, the way it was, the way I presented it?
Yeah, I like it. I like that you're not afraid to talk about mistakes, because usually when it's, we're focusing on effort, it's like, oh, and then when they make a mistake, we're just going to pretend like we didn't see it. But I think that addressing the mistake and having a ritual to be able to move past it is really helpful. So that way kids aren't embarrassed by that, but can accept that it happened and then, continue on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that key phrase of like flush it, or like every child coming up with whatever it is, their key term is to reset, I think is so helpful.
Yep. And I think, too, along with the mistake ritual, one of the things that I love, as I said, I've got like 10 other ideas on different ways to do this in a workshop, but one of the things that's a fun debate is, are mistakes okay? Discuss. It's so simple, the question, but as coaches, are mistakes okay? And, you've got coaches that I've had coaches stand up and ask, that's a really controversial topic, and no, a lot of them said physical mistakes are okay, mental mistakes are not okay. And these are like at higher level, like our mental, what's the difference? The bottom line is, what are the difference? A mistake is a mistake. And some coaches say, well, no, we've gone over that in practice a million times, and if the kid's just not paying attention and makes a mistake because his mind's not in it, that should be punished, or that should have a negative consequence. And how would you respond to that if a coach asked you that in a workshop?
I think I'd say mistakes are okay because it's part of the learning process. I would be more worried about the kid who doesn't even try, because they're done. They're done even trying to play because they're so afraid of making mistakes. So I would welcome the mistakes.
Okay. All right. What else? What are some other responses to that?
I love the analogy of learning how to ride a bicycle, which none of our parents, well, I shouldn't hesitate to say none, but most of our parents did not hire a bicycle learning coordinator to come in privately and teach us how to ride it.
Yeah. I would like to. If you have one, I'd love to have done that.
Is there one of those? That's a job?
Well, and really what the process of learning how to ride that bicycle is constant mistakes. You lean too far and your body adjusts, but your body adjusts too much or not enough, and your body is constantly internalizing all of those mistakes, corrections, overcorrections, undercorrections, until finally all of that entire experience comes together to be, I know how to balance a bicycle now without even thinking about it. But if you don't make those mistakes and feel those corrections, experience those corrections, you'll never learn how to ride a bike. And it's the same with playing that complex defense. If you don't try it and make mistakes and experience doing it wrong, doing it right, and what that difference feels like, you'll never get that complicated defense figured out. So as a coach, we want those mistakes to happen. We prefer them in practice, but we want them and expect them to happen all the time, leading right up until the Super Bowl or whatever our premier event is.
Sure, absolutely. And there's a book that I saw one time that says you can't teach people how to ride a bike at a seminar, and it was about getting people in there to do it. But I think just the same idea. You can't tell somebody how to ride a bike. But a lot of times coaches say, I told him not to make that shot. I told him not to do that. That's like the coach's first defense is when you tell them. But you're right. You've got to get in there. You've got to do it. I said to my parents at the very beginning of this season, you from the sidelines should be shocked if your child catches the lacrosse ball. That should be the most exciting thing you've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And they were like, what? I'm like, they're 8 years old. They have a stick in their hand for the first time. There's a ball this big. It's thrown to them, God knows where, and they have to reach out and try to grab it. If they catch that, you should be doing backflips. That's exciting. If they miss it, they're going to miss it a lot more than they catch it. So be excited if they can. And they were like, oh, I never thought of it that way. So, I mean, it's just changing the framework. They have to do it. They have to try. They have to learn. And that's the other thing, like Heather, you're bringing up the way we talk about mistakes. I don't say mistakes are okay. We don't just say, preach, okay, yeah, everybody makes mistakes all over. That's good, that's great, awesome, you screwed that up, that's great. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for letting it be a learning opportunity. Asking the player, rather than telling the player they made a mistake, ask them what they saw. What'd you do out there? What happened? Tell me what's going on. Something that simple can take a mistake rather than being an attack at the player's ability to, wow, developing player coaches is something that we talked about. Letting the kid have input, they know they made a mistake, letting them process it and figuring out what I did right, what I did wrong, how I can change it. So there's a couple other things that I do want to share with you guys that I think are really valuable in workshops. One of the things is opening up on page 25. This workshop, the way it's set up, only brings up 3 tools, actually 2. Will become a noticer, mistake ritual, and reward successful effort. One of the things that I love to bring up is effort goals versus outcome goals. And if you look on page 25 in the book, there's examples of effort goals versus outcome goals. I kind of did it verbally with you guys, but it's something that I think is just so important to do. So I have them, I have every workshop I do, I have them open page 25, and I have them think about their sport, and I have them think about a goal. What's at the end of it, let's say the first week of practice, what is one skill you want your players to have? And at any sport, they can give you a skill. And then as a group, we decide, is that an outcome goal or is that an effort goal? And you just take them through the process of thinking about, like, for example, beating the throw to first base, the first one on page 25. That's what you want everybody to do. But can they all do it? No, they are not. 100% of them aren't going to be fast enough to beat the throw to first base. However, can you keep the kids accountable for running hard through first base? Yeah. I already brought up the example of getting the rebound versus boxing out, possession of the ball. It's just different sport examples. But I think it's good for them to see that there's a place in the book. The next one down, I asked them to look at the bottom of page 25 because we talk about something called moving the goalposts. There are games called blowout games where you are just knowing halfway through the game the scoreboard is not in your favor, your team is not going to win. One of the things that we suggest is move the goalposts. If your team is not going to get the W, find a way to create a small win for your team. For example, don't worry about the score. There's this example says there was a U9 soccer team, and the coach was going to go crazy and praise the girls if they just got the ball past the 50-yard line. So that was their goalpost. And as soon as that team, they said, okay, next half, I want you guys to get the ball over the 50-yard line 3 times. And when you do, we're going out for ice cream. Like whatever it is. So these girls didn't even get close to the goal. They just got the ball over the 50-yard line, and the parents are cheering, and everybody's going crazy. That was a win, regardless of what the scoreboard says. So that's one of the things I like. Leslie Brady taught me one this weekend that I love, and I've seen her do it, and I forgot about it. She has the coaches write down, she does this with the athletes as well, but she has them write down a goal on a piece of paper, or like on a sticky note, and she gives it to all of them, and she says, okay, now I want you to go over, and I want you to take your goal, and I want you to stick it as high as you can up on the wall around the room somewhere. So the coaches or the kids go over, and they stick their goal on the wall as high as they can. And then she says, okay, now I want you to go, and I want you to stick it higher. And they all go, and they take their paper off the wall, and they stick it higher. And she says, wait a minute, I told you to stick it as high as you could the first time, and 100% of you went and stuck it higher. That's crazy. How are you able to do that? She talks about stretch goals, which is on the next page, page 26. She likes to talk about how kids inherently want to be challenged. It has to be the just right challenge, but they all like to be stretched. And this is another study that Carol Dweck did, where she gave kids puzzles, and they were unsolvable. And she told the kids, she put them in 2 rooms, and she told one group of kids that they were chosen to be in this room because they worked really hard. And she told the other group in the other room, they were chosen to be in this room because they're really smart. And what she found was the kids that were told they were smart gave up a lot quicker than the kids that were told they work hard. That has to do with the belief. However, when she gave the kids an opportunity to do another puzzle, most of them, the ones that were told they worked hard, chose a puzzle that was harder. They didn't want a puzzle that was easier. She gave them a choice of doing an easier puzzle, the same type of puzzle, or a harder puzzle, and most of them chose the puzzle that was harder. Kids want to be challenged. So the idea of stretching just a little bit within their reach, give them a goal to shoot for. So then she has them go over and take their sticky note and put it even higher. And I thought that was a really good example of, everybody can be stretched a little bit further than you think. So I thought that was a neat one too. The other thing that, again, you don't have the time in a workshop to go through every single one of these. When I ask you to do it in the course, I ask you to just pick 3 and give a sport-specific example. I would rather you get the examples out of the audience than give the example yourself. So, talk about who uses a mistake ritual. Get that out of them. What are some effort goals you can do? This is a workshop. Have them talk about this, because a lot of the time this mastery idea is something some of them might do, but they don't actually name it. They don't know what to call it, and they don't know how to really wrap their mind around it, so they need to practice it. So the less talking we can do and the more thinking and challenging and jotting ideas down they can do, the better. What are some other stories, ideas? What else do you guys have that could work into your workshop repertoire that you think would be great to illustrate this principle? What's in your arsenal?
I'm a big fan of the individual meetings with the players and letting them set their own goals, their own stretch goal. And that's on and off the field, so something that they want to improve on as a teammate as well, and then also something skill specific and effort focused as well. So that way, halfway through the season, I can check in with them, and then at the end, I let them give their own assessment as to if they felt like they achieved that goal or not. So it's really interesting because I feel like kids usually have a really good pulse on where they stand, and so as a coach, you're just kind of listening and echoing back what they already know. And so I think that's really empowering for them.
It is. Now, do they keep track of it? Do they write it down? Like, do they okay. All right. There was a debate that was brought up at a workshop one time about should the goals be public or should they be private? Should a coach have a private notebook that has goals for everyone throughout the season, or should it be like up on the goal wall? What do you guys think about that?
I think it's probably an individual thing if you meet with the players and show them that you believe in them and you ask them what their opinion is. It could be both, a little bit of both, and maybe have a team goal.
Yeah? What do you guys think, Heather and Andrew?
I think that both is a great way to look at it. Herb Brooks was known for that great saying of the name on the front of the jersey is a lot more important than the one on the back. Sometimes on a high-performing team, individuals tend to sort of just kind of ride the team. You sort of sit in the locker room with this great team, and that individual accountability disappears. So I love what Carolyn said about both, that the players kind of hold their own personal goals and toward as far as what their contribution is going to be as part of the discussion that the team has together about these are our team goals. So I would absolutely post team goals and allow people that the ability to keep those personal goals on their own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You agree, Heather, or do you think?
Both, for sure.
Both?
Yeah. Team goal and then individual goal.
Mm-hmm. So the other thing that I don't think I brought up yet at a hangout, but coaches will ask you a lot of questions because you're the expert on coaching. And it's really funny. The first couple times I did a workshop, and this coach of 30 years was asking me my opinion about something, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you have so much more coaching experience than I do." But what I recommend though is to use your own opinion. Like, say, well, this is what I think, but make sure your opinion is also in line with the principal. Because there's sometimes where I think, well, gosh, I don't really do that, but it's a good idea because PCA says it does. You know, I want it to be your own. I want it to be genuine and say, well, this is what works. Or you could say, you know, I'm not really sure about that. What do you guys think about that? And it's totally fine to put it back out to the audience, not because you don't know the answer, but just because you want to. Sometimes you want to contain yourself. Sometimes I say, you know what? I've never seen that happen. Just in all honesty, just be as honest as possible. I've never seen that happen, but here's what the research suggests, or here's what the research says would work, you know, something like that. But I just want you to be prepared because you can ask a lot of questions and people want black and white answers. Like, okay, what should I do? How do I do this? What do I, and a lot of them are very individual questions. Like, well, I've got this parent that won't get off my back and his son is a talented player, but he's got a horrible attitude. Should I bench him? Like questions like that people ask, and they want your expert opinion right away. So I just want you to be ready and be prepared, and that's where knowing the tools really is helpful. Go ahead. What did you say?
I found it very disarming in situations like that doing hockey coaches clinics where I'll start my answer with, well, here's how I've screwed that one up in the past, because
yeah.
you know I could do a week-long workshop on how many mistakes I've made.
Sure.
Going against the grain on all this and how I learned it the hard way. So a lot of times that's a great way to kind of restore that humility and say, you know, I've got a golf shirt that has an emblem on it, but I've got my share of blown situations as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of us that are trainers, the reason we're so passionate about PCA is because we're like, wow, we have made so many mistakes and we've learned from them, and now we want to share this with everybody else. So I say I agree with you, Andrew, 100%. I mean, I'm the first person to say that I've messed that up, or I bring up examples all the time, like even my basketball example. I was literally screaming at these girls to get every rebound. I mean, thinking like that's going to be motivating. Get the rebound, and they're 5'2". Like there's no way they're going to get the rebound. And I'm like, do it, and they're looking at me like, Coach, I failed. And you know, I didn't know any better. It was education. I didn't know what I was doing. So you know, I agree. I think humility is great. Well, that's all that we have for this principle. If you guys have any more questions, I like to end my workshop 5 minutes early. I can end this 5 minutes early. But if you guys do have questions, really, if you didn't get a chance, I really would encourage you to just have some time to read through everybody's responses. I'm trying to be better at that this weekend. I was really getting through everybody's answers, and they're fantastic. And it's so much great stuff that you can use at your workshops. And one of the people put this huge football example of you know, and it was a really clear. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Don Montgomery. I think it was.
It was a great
explanation. Super examples that if I was at a football workshop, I would use that as an example. Yeah. So you know, take the time to look through it and use it to help you, because when you're doing this, you never know who your audience is going to be, and you never know what kind of questions come out. So, as I said, that's why I love the fact that I don't have to be the expert. I just let the audience be the expert. What, Carolyn?
I have a question. So in talking about the ELM tree principle, the thing that I wanted to try to connect with Carol Dweck's new research of praising the process, the effort, but like the purposeful effort,
right?
Not off the effort, because sometimes when you praise just the effort, it's undermining them or making them feel stupid because they really didn't do a good job and they know it.
Yes, and I brought that up. I forgot about that. So that was when I was talking about the research that she updated when Carol Dweck came out in April to talk to us. She was saying that a lot of people will say, well, oh, just try harder. Just, you know, first you don't succeed, try again. And in her Carol Dweck way, she was like, that's not enough. That's not good enough anymore. And she did have this idea of purposeful effort, which is tied directly into effort goals. And making sure that if you're telling a player to try hard, that they have a specific goal in mind. In trying hard. Don't just try hard. Try hard to do that dodge to beat your defender. Try hard to keep your legs straight on your kick. Try hard to be in this position when you're doing a block tackle, whatever it is. So I'm glad you brought that up, because even it was funny because even when we had this this slide up, where is it? This one here, just the mastery definition: effort, learning, and mistakes are okay. We're like, okay, the elm tree should really be the elm tree because it's purposeful effort,
Right.
not empty effort. So it was funny because as this was going on, Ruben and I were like, okay, now we have to change the whole PowerPoint because purposeful effort, I think, is actually a better word than just empty effort. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, it was a good point.
Kelly, I stumbled across, I think, some language that would be a great adapter that'll kind of help segue that dynamic. If you simply add in the idea of increasing the chances of, so you take, for instance, in your basketball example, the rebound. You're looking at the 6-foot girls and the 5'2" girls and yelling rebound, 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 which is that measurable stat, that outcome that you know looking back, that was really an unrealistic outcome. That no matter what they tried, they weren't. We couldn't guarantee that this effort will equal this stat.
Yeah.
However, if you just add that little adapter of increase the chances of getting the rebound, then you can bring that focus back to what were we working on in practice. That's our goal. That boxing out, that making the body contact, and whatever. I'm not the basketball player, but whatever it was that we focused on in practice, that's the goal for the purpose of increasing the likelihood that we'll get the rebound, which will help us increase the chance that we might win, even if the score ends up being 60-20. We're still trying to increase the chance. The chance.
That's a great segue. It's a great phrase. Absolutely, to put in there.
Like if and then.
If you do this, then this will be more likely to happen. Yeah, and a lot of it too, it's also to increase your chances of getting the rebound. I get it, but one of the things that a lot of the research is about, where is the athlete's focus? And if the athlete is focused on getting the rebound, as soon as they don't, it's a failure trigger. I failed. Whereas if the athlete is focused on the position, I'm focusing on boxing out. I'm focusing on boxing out. Oh my gosh, look, I just got a rebound. Like the rebound is the result, not the goal. Then that's the performance increase right there. Is that they're focusing on their control, what they have control over. They're not thinking about all the other factors about, okay, there's a girl that's 6'1" next to me. She's probably gonna get it. She's faster than me. The basket, the shot went up hard. I'm on the wrong side. Those are all the distractors. Where the bullet focus of performance increase is when they're focusing on themselves, their circle, their control, which would increase the likelihood of them getting a rebound. So I do like that. All right. Well, it is 9 o'clock in my world. So guys, I really appreciate it. I like doing these hangouts with a little group. I think it's so much more personal this way. But I won't tell all the 25 people that are going to join the next one. But thanks. I appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of the sun. It's so funny to see. It's like pitch black here, and I see the sun, and all of you still have sun. At least Carolyn does for another 6 hours. So enjoy.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Take care, guys.
Bye.